Good morning, everyone. It is Monday. We are going to go to Chase's Diner for breakfast because we love Jamie Chase and Jen and Sophie and Lisa. We love all those girls. They're great. What was it? Branding. It's funny. I didn't really think anything about it, but I did finally launch I don't want to say official campaign for BlackJack Audio, but I'm in a position now to finally to start taking orders because I'm caught up enough with the pre-sales that we did. A lot of that stuff will be shipping out this week, so I got to look for next week and start scheduling for builds and things like that. But anyways, I had launched in Marketplace orders for BlackJack Audio Aces series, which is using the Aces motor, right? But I also market that under the GONZO Jr. and GONZO and Robot Underground brand. And I also market the same motor under the Jizz Llama or Jazz Llama, if you prefer, brand. I had a guy, I forget his name, sorry, that got kind of upset and alerted. I think his name's John Hart. Apparently John owns or started or whatever, I don't know if he works there or whatever he does, of Aces Audio. And this fan of John's was a little upset that and felt like I was intruding on the Aces Audio brand. And ironically, I'd only heard about John about 2 weeks ago when one of his clients, who has the 15, which looks an awfully lot like the Soundstream SPLX, also known as the T5, and also known as the NVX VCW woofer. But so anyways, this client needed a recone, either drop in or just parts on their own. Ooh, look at that guy. Jesus Christ, he's fucking ripped. I don't know if you guys can see him. It's all sweaty chocolate. That's delicious. Wow, what a distraction. But so anyways, the guy needed parts. John doesn't support that end of it, or didn't, buy a bunch of recones, and that can be expensive, especially for a really, like a micro business, like somebody like me that runs that, something like that. And that's one of the reasons why I didn't have any money to go to China from the get-go, and so I would recone anything, and I survived off of doing recones on Diamond Audio stuff, a lot of local brands, Rockford Fosgate, and all those guys, because there's in this area there's going to be a lot of that product, and there's going to be a lot of dead product that I can get for super cheap. That's why I have like 300 Rockford Fosgate P3 subs that I'm going to recone, so that I got for $1 each in trade, So, but that that's my method. So, but apparently John owns Aces Audio. Let's just go for that. I would love to do a full review on his brand and even talk to him. I don't have any issues with him, even if I established BlackJack Audio previously. The point I was making earlier to someone was that brand and IP, intellectual property, is a very strange thing. One of the examples, he's a TikTok creator, and he brought this to my attention. I had heard the case before, but he brought this to my attention. And he's an author, and he's a comedian. He's very funny. I'll give you a link to his TikTok. I'm spacing out on his name right now, but Jason, that's right. But anyways, one of the things that he brought up was how when Nintendo came out with Donkey Kong, right, it was actually called Monkey Kong first. And, this is just the Japanese take on the idea of, you know, a giant gorilla, monkey, you know, ape type of character and throwing fire barrels and all this kind of stuff. It's just a game they came up with, and it sort of skirts and is inspired by the idea of King Kong. That's quite obvious. However, a lot of the IP surrounding King Kong is probably open source by now. I forget what that's called, where it goes into the public domain. So, but anyways, a couple years prior, I think about 10 years prior, Universal had just released King Kong, the one with Faye Dunaway, which I saw as a little kid at the drive-in theater, and they're like, "Hey, you're ripping off King Kong. This is our movie. This is our intellectual property. You're making money off a video game, blah, blah, blah." And really, the only thing that started it was that Nintendo was successful. That's it. So if you're not successful, nobody gives a shit. But as soon as you start making any kind of money, then all of a sudden, they start fighting over whose IP is what. And they sent a lot of really threatening letters and a lot of legal action, and Nintendo was super tiny at the time compared to what they are now. And so it was literally like Mario versus Donkey Kong as far as the fight goes. And and props to Nintendo for developing the Mario and Luigi brand and the story surrounding that, and developing that as intellectual property, because that was certainly not part of the King Kong mythos of storylines that other creators had come up with. But so anyways, Universal tried to sue, and they lost, because the intellectual property isn't even theirs. It's not even their original idea. And Nintendo felt like the Monkey Kong name, I think there was already something called Monkey Kong, or they're just like, hey, this is a little similar to King Kong, and if you actually examine it, take apart the words, the word king is much different than monkey, and it's much different than donkey. So that's what makes it really great that Nintendo was able to just do a simple name change and have really no problems as far as developing their IP, which is their idea of, a giant, angry woman stealing ape throwing fire barrels at a Italian plumber. So, which is totally, not the King Kong story. But anyways, the point that I'm making is that both John and I have a similar theme, and we developed them independently. If anything, I would claim that he ripped off me, but I'm not saying that. I think the IP, meaning the card game BlackJack, is older than both of us and has been very well established, and we both borrowed from that. So it's very difficult to argue, especially because neither one of us have any real money, about the intellectual property surrounding the terms of BlackJack, and the his is called Ace's Audio, and he has I think a series called BlackJack. I don't know if it's BlackJack. I know, I'll do that in the full review. I know he has something called Joker, which again, I also have something called the Joker series that I'm developing for BlackJack Audio. I think mine's better, but whatever. I'll let the market decide what that is. But see, I love it when nobody's here. It's nice. For all the old Vietnam vets show up acting like they own the place and shit. It's like, shut up. So again, speaking of intellectual property, and just people showing up and saying, this is mine. I'll bring in the cups. Okay. Thanks, babe.
I'll take them, because you're going to need a little while.
All right. Here, I'm going to wrap up this video.
Okay.
Yelling at me. Making assumptions. Woman, ooh, I'm going to stick a finger in your butthole. So, what was it? Yeah, so either one of us idiots who chose card games, as a motif in audio, would be fools to argue over the intellectual property rights of something that is quite common, like cards and card games and the ideas of whatever. I mean, so there's somebody welcome to come up with a rummy or bridge or canasta audio if you want. It's just as ridiculous. Again, there's a lot of imagery that I have that I'm doing my best to develop, and there's some imagery that John is trying to develop. And I think there's room for both of us, just like there's room for, one of the examples I gave was that, I market the same woofer under those three main brands, but I could also market it under dozens of other brands that I'm developing, like Lucid Hi-Fi, Copperhead Audio, Blue Devil Audio, Red Devil Audio, Black Devil Audio, White Devil Audio. There's all kinds of IP that I'm out there and have established through the use of URLs. I control, I think, probably about 300 URLs now, and I actually want to try to get a loan based on them because of the way the pricing system that GoDaddy uses. They make more money when they resell a domain rather than just selling you a domain, and so they will often give it a value that they think is based on SEO and some other factors of what your URL is worth. So you can buy a URL for $8, $10, whatever it is, and then immediately it's worth $3,500 to GoDaddy. GoDaddy thinks it's worth that, right? And they'll tell you the value. Now, is it really worth that? Well, it's really only worth what a buyer is willing to pay. But it's a handy little kind of guide to get you into the field of what's called IP, intellectual property, and it's fun and it's creative, and I would love to do a whole video on that for you guys. But I want to let you know is don't get excited, meaning angry or sad or whatever. You don't need to get super emotional about something like this. I would love to discuss this with John. I would love to see how we can. I would love to help John differentiate his brand so that we can coexist, because there's plenty of room for people that want to sell quality audio for a good price, and I think we need more of that. So, but anyways, I just wanted to cover that this morning. I'm not going to apologize for ruffling feathers, especially with that video yesterday. I was getting a lot of feedback from you guys. They're like, fuck Base Dad. Like, you don't have to go say fuck Base Dad. But if that's your opinion, then go for it. That's your opinion. But I do find it funny and entertaining the way that we are all slaves and we're fighting over our portion of the plantation. But anyways, my larger goal is to help everyone succeed and help everyone find a path and a row that you can hoe and maintain and create a living for yourself. And that goes down to whether it's working from home, flipping audio, building computers, helping people with IP problems. Again, I'm not any expert. I study this. I'm interested in this. I find it fascinating. 10 years ago, I couldn't give a shit about IP, but now I understand a lot more. And I just find it really interesting the way the court system looks at it, the way that the copyright, the government looks at it, and the way that I went through that whole thing with Nerdy Girls, right? What's ironic is when you say the word Nerdy Girls and you spell it the way that it should, that's not even their brand. Their brand, they spell girls with a number 1, and they did that to differentiate from other people using the term nerdy girls. Because if you search on Google, if you search nerdy girls, just a bunch of busty streamers and porn shows up. So that's a problem for them, because they want to be like truly nerdy girls. And because of the popularity of other related terms, that's not possible. And so I think that's why, what's her face? It's not Connor. Parker. I was like, it's some other, I don't want to say boy's name. I want to say gender neutral name. Parker Mayer, decided to hijack Robot Underground. And then they made the same arguments about, there can be multiple names for different products. And the example that they used was Delta. So Delta is a very old term. That's a Greek term for triangle, basically. And there's Delta faucets, and there's also Delta Airlines, and I'm sure there's Delta all kinds of stuff. And so, again, those are brands that are based on prior intellectual property that is open source, that is public domain, and but each company has developed their own use of that. So you can't like for me, I'll use my example. Sorry, I got to use car audio examples. So like on the Sundown, right? So I think the examples that I used on Facebook was that if you look at the Sundown SA version 1, right? That's all China made. I think Jacob started making them here in the beginning, but again, it was always a China motor, whatever. And so it just looks kind of generic. It's a black frame with a, this particular motor or whatever. So, but, if China sees that is popular, they're going to start offering that to other people. And so they offer it basically the same woofer, which is a 2.5-inch coil, dual 1-inch slugs, black glossy frame. They offer that to Scar. Scar calls it the DDX, even though the DDX is slightly larger on the OD, but whatever. It basically looks like the same woofer and it performs the same. They rate it at 600 watts, 700 watts, but it actually does 1,000, 1,100. And then there's also the Sinful Audio. I found out, I discovered yesterday. They make a subwoofer called the Envy, or I should say they market a subwoofer named the Envy, which is basically the same one. And then DS18 has their version. And again, these are all the same products, but they can't, I can't call, right? So I made a triple slug version of a 2.5-inch coil, and which is what Sundown used on their 18 at the time. They don't make I don't think they make an SA18 anymore in version 2, but during the version 1 series, they made the 18 was a triple stack to add a little more clearance and also to add more BL. And so what I did was I called mine the Vato, right? Because theirs is called the SA, right? So again, I can use the term Vato and then Vato Extreme. All I did was steal Extreme from Orion, that they came out with the XTR series. That's what the Extreme series, and they spelled Extreme with an X. They're not the ones that even invented that. There's other people that invented that before them. So again, that's all public domain stuff too. They just happen to brand it with audio and all this kind of other stuff. So settle down, Beavis. Don't get so mad about somebody's intellectual property rights unless it's a blatant theft. So like I cannot, especially in good conscience, use my Jizz Llama logo and then start calling the woofers a W7 and a W6 and a W3. And I would never do that. That's not the point of the Jizz Llama brand. The Jizz Llama brand is simply to make fun of overpriced, what I feel is overpriced, electronics and also lifestyle, just as a lifestyle brand. Some people feel like JL Audio is a lifestyle brand. I'm like, okay, go for it. Like there's t-shirts, tattoos, whatever. That gets interesting now. And that's why, like, for the back to Sundown, that's why I can't call my woofer the SA. So I did a twist on it, which is where I call it the Vato, because I'm living here in Arizona and I'm around Mexican culture, Spanish culture, and one of the things they talk about is like, hey, what up, SA? And so, and another term for that sort of same character is like muchacho, and there's other words, slang words and stuff like that for that sort of same thing. And so that's why I use vato. So, and now if somebody comes in and they design something very similar and call it the vato and the vato extreme, that's a trespass on my intellectual property, the intellectual property that I've developed. So, and it's not that it, and if you register the trademark, or if you register the copyright, it doesn't guarantee that it's yours. It just means that you registered it with the government first. And so like that was the case of Nerdy Girls, which was that they are the ones that registered the Robot Underground first with the government. I didn't. However, if you Google Robot Underground or even the Robot Underground, guess who comes up? Moi. That's right. I've done more work. I've definitely established myself better in the market under that brand, and I deserve that market. So, and that was my argument. So, because I felt like they were trespassing. So, but anyways, I'm going to go eat some pancakes, start the day. I got to drink that coffee because I'm back to, regular constipation. And I hate to be addicted to coffee, but I don't have a better diet. So I'm working on it. Anyways, I love you guys. Have a great week. We'll talk to you later about some other stuff later on in the day. And I love your comments and I love your feedback on the videos. Keep it coming and we'll keep the conversation going.